classic car can look perfect on the outside, but it's only when you have a look at the paperwork and the paper trail that comes with the car that you understand how often the car is being maintained and how well it's being maintained. So I've bought and sold over 100 cars over the last 6 years, and some cars I've bought with no paperwork, which often prompts a question, why is there no paperwork? But often the more paperwork there is with a car, the better. So in this video, what we're going to have a look at is the key documents you should look at when you're looking at a classic car. What will they tell you and what are the common mistakes to make, just to make sure that you don't slip up. The first piece of paperwork we're going to have a look at is the V5C. So this is the red, white and blue document that you would ordinarily expect to see when buying a car. If there's no V5C with the car, then ask the question, why not? Because to get another one from DVLA, number one, is going to cost you money, £25. Number two, might not prove as easy as you think it's going to be. Just remember, the V5C is not evidence that the person selling the car owns the car. So you just need to bear that in mind. It's not proof of ownership. But let's assume that the person you're meeting who owns the car actually is selling the car as well. It's going to be in his name or her name, should have the registration number. So check the registration number corresponds with the one on the car. Check the chassis number as well. So the reference of chassis number in the V5C, check that corresponds to the car. Also, have a look at the previous number of registered owners. So if you've got a classic car and it's had 5, 6, 7 owners over, say, 40 years, that's okay in terms of an average. I bought an MG that had 16 previous owners in 40 years. Why is that? Is it because it's maybe a troublesome car and the owners are just passing it between themselves just to move the problem on without actually getting to the bottom of what the issues are with the car? So generally speaking, the lower owners, the better. What you also want to have a look at as well is this the most current V5C that comes with the car? So you can do that by checking on the DVLA website and having a look at the date when the last V5C was issued and make sure that corresponds to the date on the latest V5C. It will also make mention on the V5C whether or not a registration number is transferable or not. So generally speaking, registration numbers are non-transferable, and it will say as much on the V5C. So don't assume that if you see a classic car and it's got quite a tasty registration number on it, maybe a cherished number, that it will automatically be able to transfer onto another car. Another thing to mention with the V5C is when you're looking at cars over a certain age, in this case 40 years, so they are tax exempt and MOT exempt, have they been correctly registered as historic? So the final thing that you need to look at with the V5C is just make sure that the car is what it is. So I'll give you an example. A Mini Cooper, what you want to make sure is that it makes reference to the fact that it's a Cooper on the V5C. If it doesn't, that might set some alarm bells ringing. It might actually go all the way back to when the car was originally registered by the dealer, in that if they didn't register it as a Cooper, then it's going to be difficult to get it registered as a Cooper now, even though it might well be. Not impossible, and you can do that, but just something to bear in mind when you're looking at the documentation. So the next piece of documentation that you need to look at is an HPI report, or as I use, a My Checker report, which gives you a feel as regards the history of the car and whether or not it's been written off or not. So take this example here, which you've got for this Mercedes-Benz. You can see here that it's not reported stolen. There's no record of a write-off. There's no record of an import or export. It's got a valid MOT and it's got valid road tax. If it flagged the car was a categorised car, so it had been written off, please just bear in mind that as long as it's been repaired properly, then that's fine and you need an engineer's report from that. But it will never be worth as much as a non-categorised car. So generally speaking, categorised cars are worth about 50 or 60% of the retail value of a non-categorised car. Personally, I don't buy categorised cars. I just think they're a whole world of woe. They're more difficult to sell on, and also they're more expensive to insure. You also need to make sure that there's no outstanding finance on the car when you buy it. Otherwise, you may well become liable for that finance if it defaults. So we'll now have a look at invoices that you get with a classic car and or a service book. To get both invoices and a service book is great. Service book with stamps in. Does not always happen, but let's assume that you've got some paperwork to look at. So the seller tells you that, oh yes, the car's had a cam belt and water pump and has been regularly serviced. Well, make sure there are invoices to that effect. Make sure that it backs up what he tells you or she tells you. If there's not, that might then prompt a question as regards, well, why not? Possibly because the invoices were paid for cash. But equally, you'd expect a summary of work that had been done. If you have a look at the service book as well, who stamped the book? Has it been done by a main dealer? Has it been done by a specialist? The more stamps, the better, on a regular basis. Now, people's ideas of a full service history is very different depending on who you speak to. I suppose the official line is a full service history will be a stamp in the book at least every 12 months. But we all know that doesn't always happen. Some stamps are better than none, and definitely. I mean, I buy cars that are 30, 40, 50 years old, and sometimes the history goes missing, which is fine, that's okay. In those circumstances, I just expect to see something that's recent that shows that the car has been looked at. Or if it's been stored in storage, maybe you get some paperwork from the early days of the car. But any which way you cut it, you just need to make sure that if you've got paperwork, you've got invoices, you've got a stamp book, the more the merrier. The next thing to look at is the MOT history of the car. So let's assume that you're buying a 20-year-old Ford Fiesta. It still needs a current MOT. What you can do is go on the DVLA website and have a look at the MOT history for that car. It would tell you the mileage at each MOT, whether or not it failed or passed, and whether or not there are any advisories. Now, the advisories are really useful because they can point you in the right direction because what things to look at on a car that you're looking at. So say it passed its MOT last year with 4 or 5 advisories. You should home in on those advisories just to make sure that, number one, maybe they've been dealt with, and or number two, you can then think, well, okay, that's going to cost me X amount just to repair and put right for next year. When looking at the MOT history, you just need to make sure that the mileage stacks up as well. So is the mileage commensurate with the servicing records of the car and the stamps in the book? So it's a bit of a generalisation, but I bought cars, people seem to have an MOT and service at the same time. So you'd expect the dates all to correspond and the mileage to correspond on all the invoices. Bear in mind that with cars over 40 years old, they are actually tax exempt and MOT exempt. But just because you've got an MOT exception doesn't mean that they don't have to be roadworthy. They do. So when you're looking at an older classic, which is maybe historic with no recent MOT, just bear in mind there might need to be work unless, of course, the person does what I've done and I make sure that I get my MOTs on my cars even though I don't technically need to. It just gives me a sense that actually they are safe and they are legal. A few other documents which you might see when buying a car, just to add to its provenance and add to its history, heritage certificates. So these are available for most British cars, certainly for British Leyland stuff and also for Jaguars. I've seen them for both of those and Daimlers. They just add a little sort of layer of plausibility to the car because it's actually what the car was when it was made. So you can tie that back to its colour, to the VIN number, and also where it was registered to and what garage it was registered to initially. So that's a nice little bit of history. Previous bills of sale as well are always useful to see, how often the car's been sold and what it was sold for. British Leyland cars from the 1970s had what was called a passport to service, which is a little blue and red and white booklet that got stamped every time the car got serviced. So that's quite nice if you find one of those. Any old pictures that come with the car, previous owners with the cars, stood by the car on a beach generally or outside a house. That's always quite nice as well to see. A little bit of history there. It's all about really just understanding the car and understanding its history. The more documentation you've got with it, the better. But just make sure it does all tie up. As a summary, what we're trying to do here when we look at the paperwork with a car is pull together a little bit of a history, a little bit of a story about the car. Generally speaking, the more paperwork, the better. Don't forget the points I've mentioned today. It will serve you well when you come on to sell the car. So keep any invoices, keep any bills for any work you have carried out on the car, put it in the file. So when you come to sell the car on, you can show the prospective buyer that you've looked at that car and looked after it just as much as the previous owners have had as well. If you enjoyed what you've seen today, then click on like and subscribe. Any questions, please post below. And as a cheeky little bonus, I've got some cars available for sale at the moment, so head over to stockleyclassics.com. The first document we're going to look after is the... look after? Start again.
Take it as a baby.
Bear in mind that with cars over 40 years old, they are actually... sorry. Come on, Timothy. Is there going to need to be any work? I've also bought cars with old tax I've also